Hello, gorgeous people. It's Michelle Wong here. I'm back for interview number 4 of day 2. Oh my God, I have Paula Ivy who's joining us. I'm gonna tag her. Where is Paula? Oh, maybe I can search for her. Paula, is that you? Tag friend. Amazing, Paula. Okay, hi. Okay, Paula, before I bring you on, I'm gonna read your bio and all the things, and then we can jam. Okay, so Paula Ivy is joining us also from Australia. She is a generator in human design. She has Sacral authority, and then her profile is a 4/6. I just had a phone call. I never get phone calls. Okay, so her bio. So Paula Ivy is the image therapist. She mixes the art of visual storytelling and capturing yourself in camera with the world of personal development. Creator of the Creatrix Mastermind, which I'm part of, as well as her signature online program, Selfie School and Video Vibing, she's leading the way for women wanting to shine their light online. Paula coined the term selfography, which is fast becoming a movement for women loving all of who they are and expressing their magic. She supports change makers to build their personal brands in powerful ways, enabling them to create visual content that pops through her online courses, private coaching programs, and in-person workshop experiences. Oh my God. So I'm in Paula's world. I did her selfography 30-day creative mission, which is so fun. And Paula, like, you have to follow her. Her photos are amazing. She's just so creative and jaw-dropping and so fun. So, welcome, Paula. I am going to bring you on camera. Okay, why does it say I can't bring you on camera? Paula, are you on your phone? Can you make sure you're on your phone and then maybe request to join? Oh, there you are. Why can't I bring you on? I'm gonna try you. It says I can't bring you on camera. I'll try again. Oh, there you go, yay!
Hello. I'm like talking to the phone as if you could hear me. I'm like, I'm requesting.
I'm coming on. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Oh my gosh, I'm in the car office this morning because kids had a terrible night's sleep, so they're all sort of sleeping in a little bit, so I couldn't boot them out of the bedroom.
I love it. I love your car office.
Yeah, it brings back memories of when I was traveling because I did a lot of stuff in the car office.
I love it. I love the car office. Oh my God, I'm so excited to talk with you today because I feel like since you had 2 readings with me, you had a one-on-one human design reading, and then you reached out to do a partner's reading.
Yeah.
And I said to you, okay, I'm happy to do a partner's reading, but is this from my perspective?
I was like, do you have partner readings? So like for me and my husband, or is that something you're willing to offer, Michelle? Like wink, wink. And you're like, yeah. And it was the coolest thing ever. I'm so happy that you were like, yeah, okay, I'll go because it's super, I'm sure we'll get into it, but it was like one of the most valuable things I think that we've done together. And I mean, we've been together since 2005, so like 15 years. And it was just understanding each other on this whole new level, like actually getting it, like, oh, that's why you do that. Like, it's just, you communicate and you understand each other, but it was just that whole other, like, oh, I like get it on, more of a, that's actually how you're designed level, which was really, really cool.
That makes me so happy. Yeah, I want to let me see if I can put my headphones on. I don't even know where my headphones are. Okay, maybe not. Okay, well, let's rewind a bit. So you are a generator, and we just had our interview with Jonna, who is our coach, and and she was saying how she had a lot of generator clients who didn't feel like a generator.
Yeah,
And you're one of them.
I am.
So can you kind of share more about like why you felt like what was the discrepancy?
Okay, so when I first started learning about human design, and I did the free chart reading, and I got it, and I was like, cool, I'm a generator. And then I was like, that's awesome. And I read a little bit about generators, and I was like, oh yeah. And then it was a few years before it actually all like came about again, and we were talking about human design. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got my chart, I wonder what I am. And we're looking more into it, because yeah, our coach Jana, I'm in the mastermind with Jana, and she was talking about it. She's like, oh, have you guys done your HD readings? And we started talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm a generator, but I don't really feel like I'm a generator in that I feel like my energy is very much, it's like I do have generator energy, but it's like it's not sustainable in all the ways. Because one of the things that you hear about generators is that they just have this energy. It's like go, and they can, like, they're the workhorse people. They're the ones that are like here to just keep working, and it feels good and it fuels them. And I was like, yeah, I get that, but I don't get that all the time. And I was like, oh, I wonder why that is. And yeah, that's when Jana was like, yeah, I have a lot of generator clients, but they feel more like projector vibes because we work in bursts. And I was like, yeah, I feel more like that I can go really all out, but it's not sustainable. In some ways it is, and in some ways it wasn't. So I'm like, I kind of, yeah, I did relate to it, but then at the same time I'm like, yeah, but I don't. I'm confused.
Yeah, I want to, like, okay, so then we booked a session together, and for those of you who are catching us live, feel free to say hi, tell us what your energy type is, and feel free to ask us questions along the way. Happy to answer them. So you booked a session, and then this is what Jana told me. She's like, because Jana booked a session, but we haven't had our thing yet. And then she said, she walks through me, and she's like, oh my God, you just did Paula's HD session, and there's like 50 voice memos in the group. And like, that's like 50 minutes of talking.
It wasn't quite 50, but there was a few, because I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I get it.
So what was like the shift, like, from the meeting?
Well, there was quite a few things. But what was like the biggest one? I guess one of the biggest ones was that, and this kind of, I've been really feeling into it, is that I'm designed to complete things, but I'm not designed to be consistent as well. So that for me kind of felt like this really like, oh, I want to complete things, but I always felt that I had to be really consistent at the way in which you complete a certain thing. Because that's what's celebrated, and that's what's actually shown to people is like, if you want to do something, you keep going at it and going at it and going at it until it's done. Whereas what you opened my eyes up to with the design was like, my design reading was like, you're not actually designed to be consistent. So that to me was like, oh, I can complete a thing, but that doesn't mean that I have to consistently do the same thing over and over again until it's done. Like, it can be different, and it can be whatever it wants to be, like, in the moment. And that's what I found with my energy, is that when I'm trying to force myself to do something because I'm like, oh, I've started this, I've got to finish it, and this is the way that it has to look every time that I do it, that's when I would lose my energy, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have that go. But then it was like, no, but if you complete it and go on your own journey with it, like, that's when it's like, okay, cool, I've got the energy to be able to go from like the beginning to the end. So I really found that with doing my quests. So in a way they're consistent, but they're shorter amount of time, but I'm doing something different every day with them. They're not exactly the same. So, if you, yeah, I've been doing these quests. So, I first started off with the daily swim quest, winter swim quest, which is the last 33 days of winter in Australia. I went to the ocean and did a swim every day, and I captured that through photos. Then I did the sunrise quest, which I captured through photos, and now I'm doing the self-portrait quest, which obviously is photos again. But for me, it's consistent in, like, it's a thing that I've started. So I'm like, okay, cool. I want to do this every day for a certain amount of time. It's not a long amount of time. But then what gets to be different each day is my creative expression with that. So the way that I take the photos. And really come at it. It feels different each day. It's just that I've got this little container for me to do whatever I want in it. So, yeah, I guess that's really, really helped me to understand why that works and why certain other things weren't working for me, and why I felt like, oh, I can't, because I always said to myself, like, I can't finish anything. I start stuff and then I don't finish it. But it's not so much, and I would get so frustrated by that, because I feel like I need to finish it. It wasn't like I should finish it. It's kind of like this, like, yeah, I need to finish it. So yeah, that was like one of the biggest things for me, which was, yeah.
I love that. I spot my headphone. I'm gonna grab it really quick because I'm hearing feedback.
Oh,
so
do you want me to put mine?
Hold on. You can. I'm back.
Because I'm not hearing feedback.
Oh, okay. It's probably me.
Is that better?
Hold on. Let's see. Now we're both on headphones, and it's just going to be perfect. Hello?
Hello.
Oh my God, it's so much better.
Okay.
Okay, so I love that. So you found that with your human design reading, it allowed you to just be you and not have to feel like you have to be consistent in a certain way and like you have to finish things a certain way.
Yeah, that's what it sort of, it gave me the, sorry, I'm just putting my thing in a thing. There we go. Yeah, it allowed me to really lean into that, flow, rather than, having things to be locked in and having to look a certain way and I guess that's why I wasn't a very good employee either. And I had a lot of jobs before I started working for myself, because it would be like, I would get bored. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I would actually get to the point where I would go into work and I'd be like, oh, do I have to do this again today? It felt like my soul was dying. And I was like, I can't do the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, that was kind of seen as like, oh, I can't stick to anything. I can't follow through on anything. I'm not committed, all of those sorts of stuff. And it's like, oh, you got another job. And it was kind of like this running joke that Paula's got another job. And I'm like, yeah, I got sick of the old one. So yeah, that was a big thing for me working for myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, because it just gave me that freedom to like not have to do everything the same way all of the time.
Yeah, that's like, I remember that being in your chart. And then like, even for you, like your motivation is like, motivation, willpower is undefined. So like your energy is not always going to be like consistent and always having to like, I'm so motivated. Like,
Yeah,
like,
that was the other thing, was like when you said, and that actually pushed me to book the session with you, because you did a free thing on a post and you were like, tell me, like, give me a chart and I'll give you 25 words about what's happening. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, oh, what's she gonna find? And you're like, blah blah blah, and don't worry if you're not always motivated. And I was like, oh, I need to know more, because I don't always feel motivated. And I'm like, as a generator, aren't you supposed to always be motivated and like ready to go? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not like that. So that little sentence at the end, I'm like, I need a session. Tell me.
it worked. It worked. Oh, I love it. And then, so that's amazing. So do you find like, so now when you're like the work that you're doing and like what's actually shifted? Is it just now like, okay, I get to be me now? Like,
Yeah, it actually helped me relax in a lot of ways because I had this tendency to start things and then I would get really I'd be really motivated and really into it, and then it would, like, the energy would drop off, and I'd be like, why am I'm not into that anymore? But it gave me permission to not see it as, oh, that's not working anymore, I'm gonna ditch that. It's more, oh, this gets to change again, like how I come around, like how I do this. Um, whatever it might be, this gets to shift and morph rather than, oh yeah, that's done. Next thing, didn't really finish that. But it's given me a fresh perspective on, like, the way that I create things and how I can make what it is that I like, programs and things that I create, and give them more longevity, to have that momentum stay there with it. Um, Rather than going, oh, well, that was great to begin with, and then, like, oh, yeah, on to the next thing now. I've kind of realized that the way that I go from, starting something until it feels completed, I usually wouldn't get to that point where it felt really complete. And I'm like, okay, cool, I've done this. This feels complete. On to the next thing. It would kind of be like, yeah, okay, that kind of died in the ass. All right, what's next? Instead, it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. What's happening now with it? Like, what else is coming out of it? Which I think is really beautiful, rather than, thinking things that have to stay the same until the end. So yeah, it helped me to feel a bit more, and that's, when I did the Creatrix mastermind membership, that was more of that energy. It was kind of like, oh, so it's like this inner creator that comes out, and she gets to go wild with the idea. It's not like, oh, it has to be like this and then you have to stay in that lane. It's like, it can be anything, which is beautiful, that comes through you. That was that was actually one of the things that inspired the Creatrix membership, which you're a part of, which is beautiful.
How amazing is that? Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Yeah, what really got me, like, it was like the inner creatrix coming out, like doing things, like, just creatively doing it our
Yeah.
way versus following a certain
Well,
method.
I suppose that's more of,
Yeah.
because yeah, the Creatrix is like that feminine energy, and when you did my
Right.
reading, you're like, you are feminine energy, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that is so interesting, because up until, probably about the past, like, year or so, I've never felt very feminine. I'm like, I'm not much
Mm.
like, I felt I was more masculine energy than feminine energy most of the time. And I felt, sometimes I'd feel really uncomfortable when I was more in a feminine energy, which was
Mm-hmm.
actually quite interesting. Um, but now that I've really, I suppose when you start a business and things like that, it's like hustle, 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 and you got to get there and all that sort of stuff. So I've learnt that for me, when I've seen my business really start to expand and things start to grow, was when I was more in the feminine energy. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mm.
So I get to let her out a lot more. Um, and basically, what I'm doing with my business is, like, creating just, like, structures for her to go wild in, because feminine energy, if you just let her out and not have, a masculine container for her to be supported in, is like, it just goes like this. I've done Queen School with Julie Tanner, and she explains it so beautifully. It's like, you're like the light. So and I'm all about light with photography. If you shine a light and it has nothing to channel it through, the light is very
Mm.
wide and it's not very bright.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you've got a light and you're shining it through, a tunnel, you're shining it like a
Mm.
spotlight, it's very direct and it's very bright. So she's
Mm.
like, it's like a supernova. That's how she describes it. And it's like, it's
Oh, I
super
love that.
bright and it's like super direct. Um, so yeah, that's what I feel like more I'm doing more with my business, and what I'm creating is that I see it more now as like I'm creating these little containers, but then the flow inside of that doesn't have to be, you know, one way. It gets to be whatever it is because it's channeled. It's like it's got its direction. So it is going to be really
Ah.
bright and really powerful, and it's okay for me to sort of like flow around and let loose in there.
I love it. I love that. That's amazing because sometimes I'll get like questions coming in around human design and like, oh, can this help me with my business?
Mm,
And I'm like, absolutely, because it allows you to come back to who you are and gives you permission to be yourself. But I think a lot of times that's not
absolutely.
what they're wanting. They want, yeah, like I get requests on like, you know, can this help me to find my niche? And I'm like, no, not like that. Not that specific. That's just like
Do you know one of
your
my
niche is gonna
sayings that I
change.
say all of the time when people are like, what's my niche? I need to find my niche. I'm like, you are your own niche.
Yeah.
Like, come back to wherever you are and you find your
Yeah.
niche just by being who you are. Because I mean, I do a lot of around branding and things like that. It's, you know, people are like, oh, I've just got to, you know, find my niche. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, but as long as you're coming back to who you be every day, you are your own niche. Because a niche means that you're just very, like, specific in a
Mm-hmm.
certain area. And your area is you.
Yeah.
And
And it and then yeah.
if you're specific with yourself, like who you are, then it naturally will come through. Like you're automatically creating a niche because, for example, for me, like people come to me because, you know, they want to learn how to take photos. That's quite broad. But then they stay because of my love of cartwheels, my unprofessional dance skills, my obsession with palm trees. Like that's why they stay. I've created my own niche within the photography industry because I don't teach it like anybody else does. Because I am true to who I am, and that's why people stick around is because of who I am. So
Exactly. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, and that's why I feel like human design allows you to be your most truest self
mm.
without feeling like you should be this or
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah, so like I'm like take back your power. You don't have to like, you know, it's like you don't have to like give like figure out my business for me in a way where it's like no, you have like, that's within
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah.
So amazing. Okay, so my next question is around the dual, like I call it the dynamic duo reading.
Oh yeah.
So like what's really awesome was that you reached out to me asking me about doing a couples reading, and then I had another human design client that reached out to do like a duo reading with her and her virtual assistant
Oh yeah.
within like a 24-hour time frame, and I was like, oh my god, this is like this could be a thing. I was like, okay. Uh, so thank you for reaching out, asking, and then trusting me because I was like very upfront and I was like, this isn't like a professional,
Yeah.
like I learned this through human design. This is like my own take on
Yeah.
it. And you're like, yep.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Yeah. I was like, okay, let's go. And so I would love to hear what came after the reading, like what bubbled up after the reading and how it's been supportive.
Wow. Okay. So when we did the reading, if anybody knows my husband, he's a man of few words. He doesn't like he does talk. He does talk. But when it's in like a, he's very good at listening too. And when we did the reading, Brendan wasn't, you know, talking much. And I know that after the reading, I sent you a message and I was like, wow, you just blew his mind. You're like, really? But it's because he was actually listening. You got
Mm.
his attention quite early, but we did have two kids running around with knives and making breakfast and butter knives, but like it was kind of like, oh, they're making breakfast, okay. But there was a call and we were finishing helping the kids getting ready for school and all of that sort of stuff. It was kind of like this, oh, when Michelle said this, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and also when Michelle said it, like we had that kind of conversation afterwards. It was really exciting. Because like I said, like we've been together for like 15 years. So we've been together for a long time. I feel like I know my husband quite well. I feel like he knows me quite well. We communicate really well. You know, we know how to work together, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, how do we actually, when I got my HD reading, it was like, yeah, but how do I like I wanted to know more about how our energies sort of work together
Mm.
and how we can help amplify each other as well. Um,
Mm.
my husband and I don't fight a lot. We've never been a couple that fights a lot. We've had fights, but we don't tend to blow up at each other a lot. Um, we have open conversations. We do respect each other's point of views. Um, but yeah, sometimes there's a bit of tension, but we tend to resolve things quite quickly. We're not ones to let things like fester and just like
Mhm.
sweep it under the rug. But there's also been times when, um, you know, you might have a moment and then and you're like, I'm like mad right now, and he's like, oh, sorry, okay, we're mad. What are we mad about? Like, I'm like, how did you not get that? But I mean, those sorts of things would happen every now and then, but it's kind of like it won't last for days or anything like that. But I was just like, I want to find out more about because I know now like how my motivation works, and I learned how how I best work, and I'm like, how does that work with us together? Like, is he the same as
Mhm.
me? Because I think especially when you've been in a relationship for so long with one person and you morph together in a few different ways, and you kind of like, is that you or is that me?
Mm.
And have you changed the way that you do things because of the way that I do things, or vice versa? And I guess that's kind of like the generator, because we're both generators, and that's kind of like
Mhm.
what a generator does. We sort of, respond to the people and the things
Yeah.
around us. So that was quite interesting. I'm like, oh, I'm a generator. I'm like, oh, so have I like morphed in some ways, or is, has he, and all of that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, so one of the biggest things um, was, yeah, learning about how we process things, I think was one of the biggest things that we took away from that. Is that I'm more like, yep, okay, cool, let's go. That's a yes. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Whereas he's more like, all right, I have to think about this. I have to process it. And I
Mhm.
have learnt that about him, but I do forget that sometimes. And then I'll be like, come on, come on, let's go. Like, it's a yes, let's do it. And he's kind of like, no. I'm like, oh. And another thing that we always do is that we ask open-ended questions to each other quite a lot, and it's
Yeah.
always like, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? How come we never know? And then I was like, oh, we need to ask each other like yes no questions, or like,
Yeah.
give some options rather than just
Yeah.
like open-ended questions, because we're both hopeless at that. We're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah, because your husband is a generator, but he's an emotional authority. So it
Yeah,
takes him it takes more time to come to a decision, especially for big decisions.
yeah,
And then you are sacral, so it's an instant yes
yeah.
no. So I can totally see like, hold on, let me like tune
Yeah,
in.
because that's like when we traveled around Australia. So for me, it was kind of like I got this vision of us doing it. And that's actually when I started working with Jana, because I was like, she had just started traveling with her family, and I was like, you need to coach me. Tell me how you're doing it. Just tell me how you're traveling around Australia. What do I do? What do I need to do with my business? I'm doing this. Tell me how to do it. That was basically our conversation. I started working with a one-on-one straight away. um,
I love it.
but yeah, so for me, it was kind of like, yes, we're doing it. And when I started mentioning the idea to Brendan, he was like, oh yeah, that'd be nice one day. And I'm like, no, like now. We're doing it now.
Not one
Not
day.
one day. And I guess it was like, I knew that he needed like a bit of time. So it was kind of like, I felt like, yeah, I'll just kind of just mention it, just mention it, just mention it. Because it was such a big thing
Yeah.
for us to do. Um, that, and I know that, in the past I've maybe pressured him to like make a decision about something like smaller, not about traveling and completely changing our lifestyle, but like I'll be like, oh yeah, we need to make a decision, like, and he'd feel rushed. So it was really beautiful to understand that. So, and I knew as soon as he had gone, all right, it's a yes for me as well, with traveling around Australia, it was like everything just started happening because of the way that we think and the way that we do things. Like he's very logical. I actually don't have the design to be logical, which took so much pressure off. That was one of the other big things that I was like, oh, okay, because I've always felt like I'm maybe not, like I've always felt that I wasn't intelligent enough in some ways because I'm like, oh, I don't think like that. Like I'm not logical. It's not seen as smart not to be logical. Like logical is like, oh, you're so smart. And I'm like, am I not intelligent? Like what's going on here? But what I've learned is that I'm very intelligent in other ways. It's just I'm not designed to be logical. And it's so beautiful that my husband is, because I can give him the dream and be like, yes, let's travel around Australia. And then when he's on board, he's like, he just made everything happen. He was just like, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. I didn't even know that we needed that. And I didn't even think about that, because he was like, as soon as he was on board, his logical brain kicked in and went, okay, how do I make this happen? And all the steps just started to fall into place. And I was like, whoa. Like you in action is amazing to watch when it's something like big, because it was so overwhelming for me. I'm like, I don't know what comes first. Do we look at caravans, or what do we need for our car? I don't know. All the information sort of overwhelms me when I start to try to think about things like that. Whereas he was just onto it straight away, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, and I was going to say something else.
I love that.
It'll come to me.
And I want to say hi to Chelsea and to Kirsten and whoever's watching. If you all have questions, right now, Paula Ivy and I are talking about her couples reading that I did for her and her husband. And so, yeah, all the things. And I love that what you were saying about just like you're less logical, because if I remember correctly, your husband has both like his crown and his head defined, and then yours is undefined. So like I love that it's such a match that you're like, oh my God, and then he was able to kind of fill in the blanks for you.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on.
Crown in his head.
For some reason, I can hear you twice.
Oh no.
This is from like ages ago. I think I pressed something.
Do you want to come off and come back on?
Yeah, it's so weird.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. We'll wait. I'll kick you off. Oh my goodness. Say hello. If you are watching, let me know what your human design type is, where you're joining us from. Paula is tuning in the morning in Australia. And let me see if I could tag her. Hello, lovely. You are back.
Okay, that was the weirdest thing. Technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. I could hear the beginning of our talk again. It was really weird.
Oh, really?
It's so much better now. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I did.
Oh, no worries.
I had to turn around because of the light.
Oh, good. Let's just blame it all on Mercury. Because we're in retrograde.
All the things happened to me in Mercury retrograde. Like my laptop died this week, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Oh, right.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's very on point.
Yes. So yeah, about the logical brain. What was the question that you asked?
Oh no, I was just confirming the fact that he was able to fill in the blanks for you because he has that connection.
Yeah. It's so funny because when you pointed that out to us, we've always felt like we work really well as a team together. And like so often I would leave stuff for him to do as well, because I'm like, oh, can you do this for me? Because I can see that as a strength for him. And like, yeah, it was just really, really confirming to be like, oh, because I'm not designed that way. Because I know there's been a few instances where he has been frustrated by me because he's like, can you do it? And I'm like, no, I really can't. Like, it's too hard. And he's like, how is it too hard? Like, especially with, filling in forms and like figuring out, if something's happened, and he's like, oh, can you just figure out what we've got to do next? And then, let me know. And I'm like, no, can you do it? Because I'm like, it just feels really, really hard for me to try and figure stuff like that out. But then, yeah, when it comes to, you know, going on adventures and doing things that we haven't done before and like organizing that sort of stuff, I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm glad that you both got so much out of the couples
Oh,
reading.
yeah. And he actually saw quite a lot about what you said and could relate it to his job as well, which was really, really cool. Later that day, after we had the reading, he had a phone call because they're doing everything remotely at the moment. They had like a meeting that he was on. He's on phone calls a lot during the day. And he got off and he was like, wow, what Michelle was saying today? He's like, that just literally played out. I was like, what? A lot of the time, like he says, he gets told a lot of the time that he takes too long to make decisions, but everybody comes to him to get involved in the projects because they see the value, because what you said in the reading was like he's really valuable in the process, like logically thinking about things and like problem solving and all of that sort of stuff, but he's not actually designed to see the project from the beginning to the end. Whereas I'm designed to see it from the beginning to the end, but not think logically. So we kind of fill each other in that, which is actually really cool. But then he could see that in his work, and he's like, and I'm like, that's why he gets headhunted quite a lot within his business. He works for a big corporate place. And because there's always like, you know, shifts with, you know, people changing roles and all that sort of stuff, he's like, he'll quite often come home and be like, oh, this department all want me. He goes, I don't know. Like, and he'll have to take his time to figure out where he wants to go. And, yeah, like, I'm like, that's why you get headhunted, because everybody wants you. He's like, everybody just wants me a part of like what they're creating to get my eyes on it. And then he's like, and then they tell me I take too long to make decisions. And I'm like, well, maybe you should let them know that you need a while to make decisions on things. And he's like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Because yeah, sometimes in the corporate world, it's like, let's go. We need to do this. We need to do this. And he's like, if you want my opinion on it, let me have my space to make my decision. So yeah, that was really cool for him. He was really excited about that.
Oh my God, that's so good to hear. That just like, it actually is like confirming for me, just because after I do a lot of readings, I don't really hear that much of what happens. And so it's really helpful to get that, just like knowing that. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And yeah, he even said, he's like, I said something about, I'm like, oh, it'll be cool to listen to it again. He goes, oh, do we get the recording? And I said, yeah. And he's like, oh, because I didn't take notes. And there was a few things I wanted to take notes on. I'm like, oh, bless you. I'm like, that's so cool.
That's so cute.
So, yeah.
Oh, my God. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for just sharing like both the one-on-one reading and the partner reading. That was really
You're
awesome.
so welcome. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties.
Oh my God. It's all good. Yeah, all good. Well, how can people learn about you? Because people need to learn about you.
Well, you can come over to my Facebook page, or, you know, friend request me if you'd like. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Paula the Ivy on all of the socials. Paula the Ivy. Because Paula Ivy was taken. But Paula the Ivy sounds a bit, it sounds
so much
sounds like, more extra.
It's very profesh.
Yeah, come over and join in. I'm always doing things.
Okay.
And yeah. Like what you said, I've got the Sophography 30 Creative Mission. That's a really great way to start if you want to start taking more photos, especially of yourself. That's a really fun mission to join. It's very low cost and it's a one-time payment, and you get to stay in the group for life, and we're in there just taking photos and having fun. So that's a really good introductory way if you want to join my world and get more of the vibes.
Yeah, I did that in July, and it just boosted. It was so fun. So I recommend it for everybody.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And then for those who want to learn more about doing a dynamic duo reading, reach out to me. That is like kind of behind the scenes right now.
Definitely. It's so good. Yeah. And like what you said, you could with your partner, but also with people that you work with. as well would be really super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fun to do. So reach out for all of the things, both Paula and I. And thank you so much,
Thank you,
Paula.
Michelle.
Have a good rest of your
You
day.
too. Bye.
Bye.